And then I got cancer in 2014. This is where I completely changed my value base because I stopped thinking about career, stopped thinking about ambition. I was told in April that I might not be alive in December. All of a sudden, there's nothing like realising your mortality. Yeah. What is the most important thing to you?
Welcoming Gerardine Clifford-Lidstone, the Chief Executive of the Ministry for Pacific Peoples. With over 20 years at the forefront of health, social services and government, Gerardine has always been about uplifting and empowering Pacific communities. She's led game-changing initiatives, driven powerful policies and never stopped fighting for equity and representation.
What was your relationship with money growing up?
We've got an Italian father who saves and a Samoan mother who's all about collectivism and generosity and whānau. She did give me a book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and she said, you need to read this book because this is the way that you should manage money. And I read the first 2 chapters and I said to her, do you realise that this fundamentally goes against everything that you have told me and taught me in my life?
This episode of the Fresh Money Podcast is proudly sponsored by Tangata Atu Motu Trust, who have been serving the Pasifika community in Ōtautahi for over 25 years. From health checks to mental wellbeing, youth programs to family support, they know what our Pacific community need and they deliver it with heart. If you're in Christchurch and need support or want to connect with a team that truly gets it, head to tat.org.nz or call 0800 Pasifika or 0800 727 434. Just a quick note, this podcast is for education and entertainment purposes only. If you need financial advice, please make sure you contact a financial advisor to get professional advice. Gerardine, talofa lava. Welcome to the Fresh Money Podcast. Thank you so much for your time. It's awesome to have you here. But let's start with your role. Tell me a bit about what you do, and for those who don't know, who the Ministry of Pacific People is and what you guys do there.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's lovely to be here. So I'm the Chief Executive for the Ministry for Pacific Peoples, but sometimes you may hear me referred to as the Secretary for Pacific Peoples. So I've got 2 job titles. So the Chief Executive job title means that I run the Ministry for Pacific Peoples. So this is a government agency that looks after the interests and needs for Pacific people. And the way that we express that is usually through policy, data and insights. And we've got a bit of money that we use to purchase services, usually from providers.
Great.
That are aligned to the government's priorities for Pacific communities. So that's the first job title. And the other one, the Secretary, means that I'm the government's principal advisor when it comes to issues relating to the Pacific community. So that doesn't mean I need to know everything about the Pacific community, but I do need to know who to contact if something arises. So if the government said we want to do something on encouraging more awareness of getting a mortgage, then I'd go, oh, I know Willie.
Yeah,
do you know? So that's the secretary role.
I see.
Often it goes into the region as well. So Ministry for Foreign Affairs looks after the Pacific region, but because our Pacific people, the diaspora, have such close links with their home countries, that often there's a bit of grey area there when the government needs advice on certain things.
Yeah. Cool.
So those are the 2 roles.
Awesome. I've got a million questions. Well, not a million because we don't have time for that, but around the ministry or MPP. Yeah. But take me back to the start. Tell me a bit about yourself and whereabouts did you grow up?
Sure, yeah. So I have a little bit of an interesting background because my mother's Samoan and my father is an Australian Italian.
Oh, wow.
They met in Wellington because my father, he was on his way to Europe, and in those days you had to catch a boat, and he caught a boat on the first leg, got off in Wellington, started working at the post office, met my mother.
Interesting.
There's a lot of similarities between Samoans and Italians, I think. You know, family is very important. So they fell in love and had 4 of us.
Oh, cool.
And we grew up and were raised there. My mother's quite a strong advocate for many things in the Pacific community, but very strong in culture. So in my childhood, we spent a lot of time going backwards and forwards from Samoa.
Oh, wow.
We lived there for periods of time.
Great.
Sounds very similar to the way that you're raising your children.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I had this very unusual kind of Samoa and New Zealand. I went to boarding school at Samoa College.
Oh, wow.
For when I was in my final years of high school, and then came back and went to university here. So mostly the way I kind of carve up my career is 10 years in government, 10 years in NGO, back in government and private consultancy, and now I'm kind of back in government. I've been working in government probably for the last 6 years.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Yeah, great. Like your child, like, because I didn't end up going to Samoa until my mid to later 20s. Yeah. How does visiting Samoa, growing up in Samoa, doing schooling in Samoa, how does that shape your view of the world and inside policy, and how does it shape the way you view and do some of your work at the ministry?
I don't know about you, but, when I was young and at school in Samoa, it was very different. You still had corporal punishment, large classes, kids make fun of you, do all the things that you don't get at school here, or if you do get it at school here, it's called bullying.
True.
Whereas in Samoa, this is the way that life was, and kids that work really hard. The families are really committed to their children's education. You have first in class, second in class, third in classes announced at the end of the term. So the pressures are really different.
Competition is.
Yeah. And whole families, really invested in the children's success. So that was quite challenging. I guess you would call it culture shock if you go from school here to school in Samoa. And I think that culture shock existed right throughout my different times. And
interesting.
Sometimes I could be culturally insensitive, which sounds like a weird concept, but I was raised really independent. Then to go back to boarding school where there's expectations that you're chaperoned places, that you're not seen in certain places by yourself. I kind of rebelled a bit against some of that. So going through that journey was tough. But now I'm in the role that I'm in, and probably throughout my career, it's been the best thing, because I really have that lived experience of what it's like to go between two cultures and understand what it is to not know.
Yes.
Because often the fear is not in doing something wrong, it's not knowing that you're doing something wrong and then finding out the hard way. So that's been really important in my upbringing.
Great. Because you were saying culture shock. As a Samoan, you grow up your life, you're like, I'm Samoan. And then you go there to Samoa and you're like, oh my gosh, this is a lot different to the stories. I knew it was going to be tough. I knew it was going to be different, but I didn't understand the culture shock until I actually got there, and I was like, whoa, that's insane. Do you think how do we as, there's, different, I suppose there's different subcultures of Samoans. There's New Zealand borns, Samoan Samoans. How do we navigate that within each other? Because they're on social media, there seems to be in some places a divide there of being Samoan, or you're not Samoan enough, or you are.
Yeah, I mean, I see that all the time too. I think the point is our culture is so diverse now. our young people are coming through with completely different values and completely different, sometimes no inhibitions about how they express themselves, about body consciousness, about LGBTQI, rainbow plus communities. And for me, I just want to embrace the diversity, because I think if you become judgmental about any aspect, you can't speak Samoan, you can't speak Samoan well enough, you don't dress like a Samoan, then you ostracize parts of our community. And for me, my role is to provide a perspective on the whole diversity of it. So I understand that there are really strong views about what it is to be a Pacific person in some areas, but I just try to be really open about that. From my own perspective, I try to be open because I also know what it is to get it wrong. And there were many times when I was growing up, I got it wrong. And that's okay. Because the main thing is that you learn from it.
Yeah, true.
So it's like,
why did your parents choose to bring you up that way?
Because they wanted me to know who I was and my identity, and that wasn't going into nightclubs. It's doing the umu, it's helping out the back, it's serving. Yeah, wow. And we were happy to do that. And it's fantastic that we were raised to be able to do that. But it's different to many, I guess because my father's Palangi, no two ways about it, and my mother's Samoan, that wasn't what you normally saw kids doing. So, different. And even now, people make assumptions of me because of my look that I do not know how to do certain things in the culture. And this is where I don't have an issue with it. But I like, sit on the bus, and I remember there was a Samoan sitting next to me. I was just kind of picking my nose like this, and there's two Samoan guys. They're quite, not old, but one of them went, "Wee, lela aile supe," and said, "Oh, look, she's going to eat her snot." So I heard him say that, and I just dropped my hand, and then I could hear them going, "What is Samoa?" So they're saying, "Is she Samoan?" "No, she looks like a Māori." So I got off the bus and said, "Faso for what?" And they're like, "Oh."
That is the best.
Yeah.
That's the best. Well, not that, but
but you get what I mean. Like, I can, but people assume things. Of me. Yes. And I kind of like that too, because I feel proud of who I am.
Yeah, I actually love it too. Yeah. That I get judged for being, because I've gone a corporate pathway through banking, and then I'll be in a shop somewhere in a suit, and then people will start, hassling someone in Samoa, and then I'll be like, and then I can pick up. I'm like, oh, they're just hassling that person, and then they realize that I'm understanding them, and that same thing happens. Yeah.
I mean, there is that reverse side too, where you get treated badly. Or.
Oh, crack up. And from your time in Samoa, from the upbringing, what values do you think have put you in good stead to, become the leader you are today?
I've definitely changed through different experiences in my life, but family, and I come from a very entrepreneurial family as well. My mum's sister, she died when she was 82, I think, but she was still trying to start businesses at 82. Wow. So family is very, very important to me. And actually, it's probably the most important thing. And I know having some financial goals or something like that might be important. Yes. But I've always kind of, and particularly more so in recent years, and if I get the opportunity, I can talk a bit about that, just really driven to give my kids the best opportunity that they can have to raise them to be the best people they can be, and for them not to want for things, but to appreciate the privilege that they have, and be respectful to people, and that they've got somewhere safe to live, are probably my key drivers.
Awesome. And, service, faith and community are, often central in the Pacific families. How did these influence your kind of view on leadership as the CEO, Chief Executive of the Ministry of Pacific Peoples?
Yeah, so, I mean, when I worked in government, you wouldn't say that it's kind of working in community. So my parents started a not-for-profit organisation that helped, largely funded from oranga tamariki. So these are children who were not being served well in the system. So they set up probably one of the first providers in 1993.
Oh, wow.
It was called Ōtautahi Trust. And after they'd been running it for probably about 7 years, the government started to devolve funds, and I was working in a government agency, and they said, well, you've taken scholarships, very good emotional blackmail that Samoan parents are very good at doing. My parents, my birth father and my mother had split up. My mother had remarried a Samoan. His name is Ifopo. And so the Ifopo and Mum had set up this trust, and Mum had said to me, well, you can't take scholarships for Pacific students if you don't come back and work for the community. So I want you to take a year's leave without pay and come and work. Or she didn't actually say take a year's leave without pay, just come and work for the trust. But I knew the trust didn't have much money to pay me. And I bought my first house.
Oh, wow.
So I thought, okay, all I need is enough money to pay my mortgage, and then the rest I can sort out. So I'll go and work for a year and help them at the trust.
Yeah, nice.
I stayed there for 10 years.
Wow.
And it grew to be one of the biggest providers in the Wellington region. So that's where I really learnt community, because I thought I was down with the brown when I worked in the government agency. It wasn't until I went into community. I was like, oh my gosh, you're so bureaucratic. Wow. You don't know the way that our community live. So the job was so diverse, where I could be writing a proposal for funding 1 minute, and then the next day at a home helping a woman deliver her baby because she was a client and she didn't have a midwife, and the mother didn't have any support. So community becomes very important. Service, I think we've probably already talked about that. One of the things working with the community is I realise now, if you don't know your community, if you're not prepared to pull your hands up and do anything, then are you really providing a service?
And so how did you go from the NGO into health? Was that a natural kind of movement or changing career? Yeah.
So after 10 years in the trust was a quasi-health provider, so we had mental health contracts, and I ended up being on a range of boards like Primary Health Organisation, and started to get more into health. Health is a very complex area to work in, and I believe in ongoing learning, and after 10 years at the trust, it became time for me to, I had done everything I needed to do. So I thought I'd go back into work in government. Oh, nice. So I went into health then to manage the Pacific Health team. So then Dr. Debbie Ryan, who runs Pacific Perspectives, had asked me if I'd be interested in coming to do some work with her. And I went and worked there. and really enjoyed that,
Yeah,
because it's
cool.
doing research, and I was on the outside, so I could go and lobby ministers.
Wow.
And it was a really nice balance
Awesome.
of working in community, doing some more academic type research, and then lobbying as well. And then I got cancer. So I got cancer in 2014. And this is where I completely changed my value base, because I stopped thinking about career, stopped thinking about ambition. And just when I was diagnosed, it was a really dismal prognosis. They said, I was told in April that I might not be alive in December. So it just like all of a sudden synthesized my life. Like, what is, there's nothing like realizing your mortality.
Yeah. What's important.
Yeah. What is the most important thing to you? So
that's crazy.
Stopped working. I had a lot of parental guilt, like all parents, because working a lot, relying on Lee, who was a teacher, so that I could be the primary income earner.
Yep.
And then I got cancer. So I thought, okay, the most important thing for me is that the boys remember who I am. Yes. They were 4 and 6.
Wow.
And that's all I cared about then. So I stopped working altogether.
Wow,
and spent the whole time being there for the kids, doing their school activities, having my treatment. So my treatment, was pretty intense.
Yeah, is it
chemotherapy, and then I have metastatic breast cancer. So they call that terminal.
Yeah,
and that it can't be cured. But when I heard terminal, I thought, I'm going to die tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, that's what goes through my mind.
And so that's what the health professionals say is terminal means that it will kill you at some point.
I see.
And the point before I started treatment, they thought that point would be relatively soon. But thankfully, I'm fine.
Yeah.
So I had chemotherapy, and then partial mastectomy, and then radiation treatment. Yeah.
Wow. And those, so you had, those are the key kind of treatment plans, aren't they?
Yeah. Yep. And I still have treatment now. Every 3 weeks I have Herceptin. And then I had 5 years of some tablets that I had to take. So synthesizing just really crystallized for me what's important. And what was important was that I wanted to live long enough to see my kids grow up and for them to remember me. Like, it was really important to me that they remembered me. And then weirdly, I really wanted to know how tall they were going to be. Like, that's like, I'm not going to find out how tall they are. Wow. I don't know why I zoomed in on that, but I did. So,
well, there's like, you still had, some goals, like, through the uncertainty.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I want to see that happen. Wow. And how are you today? How's your health?
So I'm good.
Today? Yeah. Wow.
So, I stopped working for 3 years. Yeah. So from a financial point of view, when you're the primary income earner and you make that choice, we had to eat into our mortgage to do that, because I thought, if I'm going to die, well, I want the kids, I'll get through this treatment, then I'll do the things so that the kids can look back and have lots of memories of me, for as long as I can. So my treatment went really well.
Wow.
And
that's awesome.
Yeah, I just, every checkup I was fine. So, the radiation worked. So I've been stable ever since. But I still had that fear inside me. Yep. Every ache and pain, you might go, I've got a sore knee, where I'm like,
what is
this?
Could
I need to go
something?
to the doctor. Yeah. I need to get that checked out. So 3 years of not working, And then I thought, the kids, I knew that maybe I should start going back to work because the kids went from asking me if I was coming to their school things and I'd say no, to waving me away from their classroom door when they saw me go past because, I joined the Parents Association.
I'm here.
The Parent Helper Group. And then they were like, but also.
Yeah, you're supposed to be going to work now.
They're like, can you go now? But also, and I'm not saying that they're any better at this now, but I was becoming like a cleaner, they expected me to do things for them, and I was worried about them not having a work ethic or not understanding that you have to work to get things, because they would see me at school and, what probably looked like an on-call life for them. So then I thought, okay, well, if I go back to work, the only jobs I'll do are jobs that will give me the means to continue this lifestyle of being there for the kids and being able to do things that...
Being there with them and support them and building those connections and memories. Yeah, great. It's funny when you say that because we are going through a similar thing of my wife joining me in the business. But with that, she is around our daughter who is here in Christchurch. Does that mean that she is going to be there all the time and do everything for our daughter? No, because we don't want them to not build up that strength and resilience to be able to continue to do things for themselves at the same time. But where's that balance? Is there a balance of doing too much for your kids or not enough? If you're serious about buying your first home, make sure you check out the First Home Buyers Masterclass. In this masterclass, we take you through the whole home buying journey, from getting pre-approved, finding your property, to settling. This will take out a lot of the confusion and make your home buying journey a lot easier. Make sure you check out the link below for our masterclass.
Well, isn't this the thing that we always worry about? Because, as I was saying before, I want them to appreciate what they have, but I also want them to strive and work. And I'll always be there for them. But, as a parent, when it's like, hey, come on now, you're taking this for granted.
Yeah, big time.
And so I saw, probably when they were hitting 10 to 11, that I needed to, get some work underway and to show them that I have to work, and also just to balance out family life as well.
Yeah, awesome. In regards to, Pacific traditional ways of healing and medicine, is there a conflict of the island ways or the Pacific ways of doing treatment for something like cancer? Is there a conflict there, or is Western medicine okay, or is there still, I don't know, a lack of education in that place of it being okay or not?
I mean, I think for me, because I was at such a dismal point, I was going to do everything, so I did everything. My mother wanted me to just do one, and we haven't really talked about it since, but she didn't want me to do chemotherapy. She wanted me to do natural, more traditional.
Yeah.
But I, my oncologist and the breast surgeon who actually saved my life, because, just for the things that happened during that time, he was the one that caught the diagnosis. So I'd been looking for a solution for some time.
Wow.
But he said, I don't care what you do, Gerardine, you can eat alfalfa sprouts, do whatever you want, but do not get in the way of my treatment plan. And I was like, okay, all right, so I'm going to do what he says. Then I had, people sending me sasalapa juice and
I see.
sending me noni and wanting fufu.
Yes.
And wanting to give me fufu. So I did all of it except for fufu, because the cancer I had is a systemic cancer. It's not, I had breast cancer, so it's not the type of breast cancer where there's a lump. So anyway, so I did for 4. I went to a spiritual healer. I reconnected with the church and had a Catholic priest.
Yeah.
So I think that when you're in that space, it's not about either or. I was just like, give me everything.
I'll take it all.
And I did.
Yep.
And you know what? I
Yeah,
think
wow.
that was really important in my healing pathway, because when I went to see my oncologist, I always felt really scared and nervous. I felt that they're always looking negatively at the information, and I knew from a spiritual point of view that I couldn't have that negativity in my body because my body needed to be healthy.
Yeah.
So then I would see, a spiritualist and the priest, because they were always really positive, and it's just always the balance of the two. Yeah.
And it's in a way you are, if you don't go through that process, you're kind of cancelling part of who we are as Pacific,
Yes.
right? Yeah, and not, what's the word, kind of coming or exploring that piece of identity as you talked about before, because it is a key part of who we are.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, no. And I think, when you realise your mortality, when you know you're going to die, you actually stop caring about a lot of things too. So you care deeply about the things you care about, and then you don't care about a whole lot of other things. So this was very important now in my leadership, because I used to be somewhat considered in my thinking, or if I didn't agree, I'd sit there and go, I don't agree, but I'll let you get away with it. And then all of a sudden I was, nah, I'm not going to sit there. And I was surprised at how quickly
interesting.
I kind of moved from someone who probably would be a middle manager to someone that actually she speaks her mind. She's not afraid to say what she thinks. But it was because I know that I'm going to die.
Yeah. Wow,
and it's like, say it now or say it never. And I just didn't want to for some weird reason, I associated illness in my body as retaining information and retaining things that should be out, not in.
Interesting.
Yeah, kind of like Shrek.
I need better out than in.
Yeah.
But, well, that's, I hadn't thought about it in that way. Because I'm probably sit more on that side of, I don't agree with that, but I'll just let it go. I'll just let it slide. I won't say anything. I won't cause any trouble. And it is a common Pacifica trait. It's like, I don't want to stir the boat. So whereas part of me now is like, actually, I do have a responsibility here to speak what is, I'm actually valuable. I should contribute to this because it will help them help me. Yeah.
Isn't that wonderful that you come to that conclusion without having to have the fright, which is much better way to do it. You must be smarter.
Well, no, definitely not. How did you move and transition into becoming C at the Ministry of Pacific Peoples?
Yeah, so when I decided to take a real job, I went back and worked at the District Health Board in commissioning. So commissioning is the fancy word that is used these days for the deciding where money goes, where funds go.
Gotcha.
And I really like working in that space.
Yeah, cool.
And then when COVID hit, they didn't have a Pacific director at the Ministry of Health, and they needed to get funds out to the community. So they rang and said to me, would you like to come in for a conversation? I get there and it's like a full-blown interview.
Oh, wow.
And next thing I'm there helping them write a cabinet paper to get funding for COVID. So, I spent 3 years at the Ministry of Health. I mean, this is scaffolding over a long period of working in health in various ways. And I guess it's that combination of I know the community, I know the providers, and I know the government systems.
Great. And if we kind of go into the ministry of Pacific Peoples. What is you coming in? Is it? I don't know if it's still the same now, but what was your, I suppose, your key goals at the ministry when you were coming in to lead it? Is it still the same?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing for me when I started at the ministry, you know, there were a couple of issues that had come up, and I was aware of that. So a couple of issues in the organisation that I knew needed to be fixed.
Okay.
And so the first thing was, what is the issue here, and then how do you go about fixing it? So a lot of it was just getting under the bonnet of the ministry. I have really strong views that any funding we should get should go to the community as much as possible, that we run a really streamlined organisation and that we devolve as much into the community as we can. That's how health was, how the Pacific team at Health was run.
Yeah.
So trying to get the organisation in a place to do that, we're probably just getting there now. Also, I guess the other thing is, one, what funds can we devolve to the community? And unfortunately, on the back of COVID, you know, the current financial crisis that we have at the moment, it means that funding is a lot tighter than it was.
Yeah,
so
we've seen a lot of cutbacks.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we've built a really strong data and insights team.
Great.
And so I'm really looking forward to seeing some of the results of their work will be coming through in the next 12 months as we start to get better at digging into the numbers.
Yeah, awesome. What was your relationship with money growing up?
Well, probably like most, actually a little bit different because, you know, my parents tried to give me pocket money. So I started off like 50 cents.
Yeah,
and
awesome.
we could save it. If I wanted anything, I had to get a job. You know, it wasn't like I had money. But they did try and give me, you know, like a little post office savings book that we went to school and we put money in and you could watch the amount go up. It's probably sitting somewhere. I don't know what happened to that money.
Yes.
And you're probably too young to remember the post office savings books
that would come
take
around
to school.
Once a week, I think it was.
Yeah, and you put 50 cents in. So that's probably my first introduction to it. And then I was given pocket money. It was really inconsistent, even though my parents would say, you know, you'll get, you know, 50 cents a week.
Yeah.
I don't remember it being a consistent thing or it going into my bank account. And then I would have jobs if I wanted anything. I'd have to get a job and pay for it myself.
Yeah. Did they teach you how to manage money at all?
No, well, I had two, you know, you've got an Italian father who saves and a Samoan mother who's all about collectivism and generosity and whālawe. So those things were very much part of my upbringing. She did give me a book when I was about 18. She gave me Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And she said, you need to read this book because this is the way that you should, you know, manage money. And I read the first 2 chapters and I said to her, do you realize that this fundamentally goes against everything that you have told me and taught me in my life about, you know.
It does.
So anyway, I don't know what she was doing. Maybe someone had told her it was a good book, but it was, you know, real clash in values.
It is.
You're right. I didn't like school, but I really liked university. And I left university because my mother needed a new fridge and I bought a new fridge on hire purchase and I needed to be able to service the hire purchase. So again, it's more that not saving to buy it, it's put it on hire purchase and pay it off. So those are things that were really, you know, and my dad used to say to me, you could bungee jump on your checks because my first year of university, I get a checkbook and a $500 overdraft from the National Bank and the BNZ Bank.
Those student packages, eh?
Yeah, and I had no idea how to do that, you know, like I didn't know what to do. It was just like, oh my gosh, I've just got this money.
Interest-free overdraft, that's what.
Yeah.
Well, when I worked at the bank, that's what we were giving you.
So my dad opened my bank statement and hit the roof when he saw that I was $252 in overdraft, and was that to him was like, what?
Yeah, wow.
So he got me. He told me there's a new restaurant opening in Kilburnie.
Oh, okay.
I've got you a job interview. You're going to go down there and you're going to work in the restaurant until you pay that overdraft off.
Wow.
Get to the restaurant, it was KFC.
Best restaurant in Kilburnie.
Oh my gosh,
I've been through that drive-through a couple of times.
I tell you what, I don't know how much I got paid, $8 an hour or something like that. I worked there until I paid that $252 off.
Jeez.
And I never went back.
Oh, that's crack up. Oh, wow. Wow. I was going to say, like, what are some of your money mistakes? And I suppose having that overdraft was...
Overdraft.
But you learned from it.
Learned from it, yeah. And then the shame of being, I've been told that,
Well, at least you lasted longer at KFC than I did.
Did you?
I was at KFC for probably about 2 weeks.
I didn't have a choice because my family were going to disown me if I kept my overdraft, which in today's term, $252 is not much, but in those terms, it's like $1,000.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
So so that was a huge learning.
Yes.
But from then on, like my first job, I think I was paid $20,000 a year, $21,000 a year. My rent was $80, but things weren't as expensive.
Yeah,
so
true.
I could
true.
put away a bit of money, and I did.
And so you became a saver from that job?
I think to say a saver is a bit over.
Oh, yeah.
I wasn't
save-ish.
I had money, you know. But when you're a student, those things like you go out with your friends, have a couple of glasses of wine.
Yeah, totally.
And then all of a sudden you become a millionaire. Like,
Drinks are on me, guys.
Don't worry, I'll buy it. Don't worry, I'll buy it. Because I always worked.
Was money a big stress during that time?
No, well, I think probably the best thing that I did when I was young was to get insurance. And I got insurance because I was too whānau.
Health insurance, eh?
No, not health
life
insurance. Life insurance and income protection. And I did that because I was too whānau. The insurance agent was a really good-looking guy, and he'd come in. Someone had brought him into the office and then got everyone to, and
he was talking about insurance.
Even then it was like $10 or something like that a month.
Interesting.
And I couldn't afford it, but I didn't want him to know that I couldn't afford it, so I signed up.
I can afford this. Yep.
I signed up because I couldn't say no. Thank God that I couldn't say no. Usually I say if you can't, you need to learn how to say no.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, in that instance, it was good because what happened was from a young age, like who was to know that, over 20 years later, but I just kept paying that, my income protection and life insurance. So when I got sick, it wasn't a lot of money, like it wasn't my salary, but I could not work. So that gave us a bit of income.
Yes.
Because when I die, their life is going to be in chaos. So the main thing is do not sell the house and do not take them out of their school. Just try and keep everything stable. So we had equity that we used to give them the best life with me that we could. So it set us back. It absolutely set us back financially. And I don't regret that in any way. But I'm lucky that we didn't eat into the equity of our house, because if we had, we would have had nothing.
Yes.
And then been struggling, we wouldn't have been able to pay the school fees.
Yeah, interesting. Like, and that the income protection offset some of the costs that you would have had to pay without it, somewhat. Because we've had health insurance for a long time. And I'm like, oh man, it's expensive. It
is
is
so expensive.
And like not all of our community can afford it. So I feel privileged to have it.
Yeah.
But, and recently we've actually had to make claims for our kids. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's actually
a godsend.
It's paid for all those premiums that we've paid and then some.
Yeah.
So I'm like, the value of it is it's almost this missing piece from my view as a mortgage advisor in the Pacific space. And like, if we had some sort of solution for, lovely lovers, when, like some funeral cover or small life covers that would help our communities like get through those times with less stress. Yeah, because it's there to help you in the mourning process, life insurance. So it's not going to take away the pain or anything like that. It's going to help you more. Yeah, and give you time, and so you're not weighed down with this financial pressure that's happening over here while mourning at the same time. So
yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the best thing that I ever did, because no one will give me insurance now. So my risk factors are too high. So the insurance I've got, I just keep paying, and I kept paying. Actually, when I was diagnosed, they let you stop your premiums because because
you're on claim, mate.
Yeah, you're on a claim. Yep. Yeah. So all those things was just amazing. Because it did set us back financially. Yeah. But thankfully, because I didn't die.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah.
These are tough decisions that you have to make on a day-to-day basis.
That's right.
They're outgoing to go to what appears to be nothing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you're paying for something you don't actually want to use.
Yeah, or you can't see.
Yeah.
So you could buy meat and bread and butter.
Yep.
With that $30 or $40 a week or a fortnight. Yeah. So I'm so blessed to have been able to do that. And now, cool. Now I can work, but I mean, that would be my biggest advice to people, is take out your insurances and keep paying them, because I'm a really good example of, yes. I didn't have health insurance, but public health system, once you're in it, is pretty good. Yep. The issue for our community often is that they don't get to diagnosis until it's really late.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. Yeah, so it's important to go in. Yeah, cool. Almost out of time, but I just wanted to ask a couple more questions. What around the ministry? What is your goal or vision for the ministry in these next couple of years?
Well, we're in a very dynamic time at the moment. I mean, at the moment, there are multiple pathways that could happen. Some of them are kind of downward pressure from government because, and I don't mean this government, but just in general, that with the current financial fiscal environment that the country's under, we have to look at doing things that are more efficiently and working more collaboratively. So I'm just going through a process of thinking what that might look like in terms of partnerships, particularly with community.
Oh, wow.
I think that artificial intelligence is going to significantly shift the landscape in the wider environment. Yeah. And I've our leadership team have gone through a masterclass in artificial intelligence.
Wow.
Because we want to be on the top of the wave in terms of what that means. And So thinking about that and how we can use that more creatively. And then this might sound boring, but, really getting down to data and insights even better. We did what is called a long-term insights briefing.
Okay.
And we know that the data for Pacific that is held by health and education, the quality of it is not as good as we'd want it to be.
I see.
So understanding ethnicity, the dynamics for Samoans, for Tongans, getting to that level consistently across the whole of the government platform is really important. So that we know what our community thinks and feels and what their needs are, so that we can provide advice. So having a look at those areas.
Is there going to be a focus for the South and potentially more investment for our people, Pacific people in Christchurch and the South in general?
Yeah. I mean, this is why our data has to be really important, because it's really hard when you've got the might of the numbers of the Auckland region.
True.
To argue based on numbers.
Yes.
But thank you for your comments about the team. I'm always delighted by this team and their humility. They really do mirror what I would want all our teams to show, their understanding of the community. When I say we're working on our data, just really scrutinising what the implications are, because the difference for the South Island, and you may have seen this from Census 23, is that the populations are growing. And
I've seen it as a mortgage advisor completing home loans for people who are coming down from the north. Yeah.
It's backpack even today. It's just like, wow, there's so many people here. And places like Timaru, Oamaru, parts of the South Island. I need to check this with Dr. Karina Gray, who heads our data and insights team. But as I understand it, these populations are growing, and in other areas, the population is relatively static. The growth rate is not as big. So we really do need to look at these communities here, because what you end up with is what you potentially end up with is you have Auckland with all the services, and Christchurch and Oamaru, Timaru, Ashburton with smaller numbers but the same problems, and without the services around them to support them that you get in the bigger region. So I completely hear what you're advocating for, and I understand the dilemma, because we do get the same problems in Auckland but without the support. So we need to look at how we address that. Really keen to work with the Cause Collective, who are the new whānau water commissioning
I saw that
agency.
That's great.
And I think there'll be lots of opportunities for us to work a bit closer together.
Awesome.
To address some of these sustainability issues, the financial sustainability issues. We have to work closer with communities, and that looks like they'll, an obvious place to start will be with whānau water.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. So I hope I haven't taken up too much.
No, you've been awesome. I have one final question, which I ask all my guests. What does wealth mean to you?
Oh, gosh. Wealth means that I'll be able to do all the things I need to do for my family. When I say I haven't met a Pacific person yet who isn't paying for someone else in their extended family. That's my mother and what her desires are, my children, my siblings and their children.
True.
When they're all happy, then I'm happy.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Thank you so much. It's been an honour and a pleasure to have you on Fresh Money.
Thank you for having me.
I wish you all the best in the ministry, and your family and in your health too.
Thank you.
Blessings.
Thank you to you and your team for this opportunity to talanoa.